Now I'm going to show you a trick that most people do not know how to do. It's a little tricky, but it's great when you're doing portraits. Let's take a look at this shot of Kayla with the water in the background. And normally we wouldn't be this close, but I really want to show you by example the background. Now watch the background now. Isn't that really cool? People are going to look at this picture and go, how do you do it? Number one, have Kayla or any assistant you have stay really still. Your model stay really still and use a tripod. But the problem, if you try this, you'll be like, John, it's overexposed. What do I do? You got to be careful not to expose it. I'll show you in the back. That's a very slow shutter speed. I should have said right off the bat. So you're going to hit your set button, and we're going to rotate. We're already at 250th of a second. Use our knob up here to turn it. You want to turn this down to like 1/3 of a second. So I'm down to 1/3 of a second. The two little parentheses there, not parentheses, commas, means 1/3 of a second. Then I'm going to go over to my ISO. I'm sorry, let me get off that. And I'm going to go to my ISO, and you see it's at 400. We're going to have to bring that down really low. You don't want it to auto, you want it to 100. Because if your ISO is normally set at 400 or 800, it's going to overexpose. So you're going to use a tripod, have your model stay really still, and bring it down to 100 ISO. And this is the kind of shot you're going to get. Now if it's really bright, you might have to, I'll show you on the front of the camera here, screw on about 2 or 3 neutral density filters to let even less light in. Because with the 100 ISO, you're not letting in a lot of light. But with 1/3 of a second, you are letting in a lot of light, which is not a problem after the sun sets, but midday, it can overexpose your image. Keep it down at 100 ISO, and if you absolutely need to, you can get by a couple of neutral density rings and put it on the front. I believe this one was done simply with 100 ISO. And this one right here, you see how the water is sort of blurry? Well, what happens if you want pictures where the water is sharp? Like this right here. To do this, you're going to set your shutter speed up real high. And set your shutter speed up high, pretty much the same kind of thing. Go over to where the shutter is, use your dial, command dial here, dial it in, and this one I believe was done at like 1/320th of a second. Let me show you another example or two. So you have that shutter speed done really high, and then in our next picture, you have the kicking up of the water right there, and that's really what we were trying to get across. Now, something funny about this, it was on a little dock, and the sun was setting, and I asked our lovely models here to run down to the dock and sit there because the light was that hour of golden light. This was about 5-10 minutes before the sun was setting over the water, and I wanted to get interesting shot, and this is one I got here by having the shutter speed up high. The light was still out, so we could still have that high shutter speed. Here's another example right here. And notice we're starting to lose our light to the point of the bottom where their feet are is not lit up, but their heads are. But this can make some very good portraits, and then we went and got some more shots. Like this nice portrait, because we were losing our light, I zoomed in. I always said this would make a great camp brochure picture, you know, because she just looks really nice and relaxed. And look at the blue of the water in the background and the green. I zoomed in from a distance, so you got that out of focus background. But the niceness of the shot is all about the light, and the light was about 10 minutes before it was setting. Now here's another one about an hour or two before it was setting. I had Daniel, my son, sit on the steps here and just had him just model for me different shots. And you could see the nice shadows that you get of the different rails and stuff. And those shadows can always add to your pictures. Now here's another shot that we were talking about depth of field before. I really like it. I got some passers-by over at Sturbridge Village. I zoomed in from a distance and once again had my, I'll show you on the back of the camera. You want to go to AV or aperture priority, and then you're going to hit your set button on the back, and you're going to move to F, your f-stop, and you're going to bring that f-stop down as low as you can go. In this case, it'd be 5.0. Zoom in from a distance, and I purposely had some foreground framing, some trees in the foreground, and the background's a little soft and the foreground's soft, but it frames your image. Now here's just a nice portrait shot right here after the sun was going down. But as the sun is going down, you're going to have the ability to bring that f-stop down real low and really get the foreground's a little out of focus and the background's out of focus too. And here's a shot, a long exposure. Let me show you on the back of the camera how to get this long exposure. What you're going to want to do is you want to go over here to TV or time value. Okay. And I think we shot that at like 3 or 4 seconds. I had her hold really still. Then you want to go up to your ISO, and then you're going to want to set that ISO at about 1600. Now I set the ISO that way. You can also set it by turning the wheel here. So the ISO's there, and then you want to go to your time value. And let's take that time instead of 1/320th, let's take it all the way down to 4 seconds. And 3, 4. There we go, 4 seconds. So when I take the picture, okay, it's going to take 4 seconds to expose. And look at the people in the background. They're sort of blurry because they moved, but Shauna stayed right in place. Now at 4 seconds, you can't handhold it. I didn't have a tripod with me right here, so I just used this bleachers that she's leaning against to get the shot. Let's take another example. Once again, no tripod, so it's not framed exactly like I'd want it to, but if you don't have a tripod, use whatever you can around. And this was just existing light from the buildings, and the light from the background was just a quartz halogen sort of spotlight on the lake, and it tends to look a little very unusual, like we set up some big fancy lighting shot, but we didn't. We just exposed it for a few seconds. Here's another one, 4-second exposure of a bottle rocket going off in my front yard. We lit it and then took a couple, it's a little bit of a guess, and that's what a bottle rocket looks like at 4-second exposure. With an f-stop, you could have your f-stop somewhere around 8 should do it, or 5.6. Now here's another, this was like 10-second exposure, and I said go, and I had somebody with a fluorescent light, little battery operated light, run around this little park downtown, and that's what it came out like, looking like. Digital is great because you don't have to waste film and wonder what it's going to look like later. This is a fluorescent flashlight. I had Martha stay totally still for 10 seconds. It might have been a little less than 10 seconds, and we ran around with a flashlight, and the person in the background moved so fast that all you see is the light around her and not the person. Now here's just some nice shots that you can do with your camera that I used reflection. The reason this shot looks good, there's pollen on the water, is it was early morning, but the reflections in early morning and late in the afternoon make for some nice shots. Let's take a look at another one. See, it's an okay shot normally, but what makes it nice is you could see a reflection in the lake. Here's just a cute shot that she was reading exactly like this, and it was in a little camping trip, and I got down on the ground. Don't forget to get your camera real low on the ground, get some neat low angle shots. Now here's a typical situation. Remember we talked about exposure compensation, but I looked at this and I said, I don't want to flash in these people's face. It was early in the morning, and exposure, compensation would have done it, but I really liked the background. Instead, you know what I did to solve it? I just moved around them. There's no flash here or anything. As I moved around them, they actually broke up their circle a little. I said, no, don't break it up, keep talking. And I got this shot. So sometimes if you can't get the shot, you don't feel like going to flash or exposure compensation, just move. Look at the difference in shots. Now here's a neat shot because the sun was coming down on the back of this kid's hair. I said, can you move over just a little? But then his face wasn't lit up well. Okay, so quiz. How would we solve this problem? Does everybody remember from earlier? This is your quiz. Let's take a look at the answer. There it is, the white card. I just had him hold a smaller version of the white card Trevor was holding on Shay. And you see how it bounced that light off that's coming to the back of his head and made it an even exposure on his hair and his skin. Now here's a shot of Kayla, and what I like about this is the background, once again, just an out of focus background, but it was nice even lighting because it was early in the morning. And this is the last shot here. I like it because everybody likes a baby. If you can't get the exposure totally right, have the person just turn. That's all we did here. So, Brian, would you just turn and stand a little over to the left? And then you get a nice evenly exposed shot. Though the baby's a little bit on the high side exposure, everybody likes a cute baby.